So let's talk about strings. String is a data type. So far we've talked about the int data type and the double data type. In this course, for a while, we're going to concentrate on int, double, and string. Those three data types will take us a very long way, and it just makes things much easier without bringing in all the other data types that are available in C#. So let's declare a string variable. Now, to begin, we're going to start with the data type. So string is the keyword for the string data type. And then, of course, we're going to put the name for it, like so. So that's a valid variable declaration for a string. Now, a string can hold letters, numbers, punctuation marks, hyphens, underscores, all kinds of symbols. It can basically hold most everything you can think of, everything you see on the keyboard, as well as some things you don't see on the keyboard. So once I have that variable declared, I've got that box ready to go. I can assign something to it. One way I can do it is just like we've seen before. I can initialize it in the same line as the declaration. So first name equal Jim. We'll just do it like that. So right here, so I've got double quotes surrounding Jim. Jim is the string. The double quotes just tell C# that what's inside is considered a string. So the double quotes are delimiters. Jim, also what's in double quotes is considered a string literal. That's just a term we need to know. So we've got a literal, which means we're literally typing out the value, as opposed to a string variable, which is what first name is. Now we've actually seen literals before. So like, for instance, with an int, if I do something like this, 9 would be an integer literal. It's literally the value 9, whereas number would be a integer variable. So again, just some terminology that we need to know. Now in Visual Studio, by default, string literals are going to appear in red. Now on my screen, mine looks a little bit orangish, so I'm not sure what you are seeing, but it's supposed to be red. All right, so what can we do? Once we have it declared, we can do things like this. Just like we've seen before, and of course, that will just print out the value stored in the variable, just like so. Now, what else can we do? Let's do this. Let's do a multi-declaration here. Last name. Do a new string literal. And let's also declare that. And we'll leave it, we won't initialize it just yet. So we've got first name and a string literal assigned to it. We got last name, a string literal assigned to it. Let's go ahead and do full name down here. Just like so. And also, so we can see the results, we'll do full name right there. So what about this line? So we're saying full name is assigned. So of course, this is an assignment statement because we're using the assignment operator to put a new value in full name. But we're assigning it first name plus last name. Now that might look a little weird. We're adding strings. The plus operator, of course, is, how we do addition, and it normally works exactly like you expect, but with numbers, not with strings. When we've got a string on either side of it, what happens is string concatenation. So concatenation is where we take something and tack it on to the end of something else. So in this case, what's going to happen is we're going to look inside of last name and grab a copy of its contents. We're not going to change it. We're not going to change last name or first name because we can only do that with an assignment. But we're going to take its contents and tack it on to the end of this, the contents of this, to create a whole new string. And it's going to look something like this. You can see Jim and Smith. That's the whole new string that was created. Now, of course, they're bunched together. It doesn't look good, but we can fix that. What I can do here is in my concatenation is I can concatenate something else. I can concatenate a string literal in here and space and close quote and plus. And let's do some spacing. So what are we doing here? Now we've got, we've got three different things being concatenated. But here, right here, below my cursor is a string literal, and it has a single space inside the double quotes. Space bar is a character. You don't exactly see anything. I mean, well, you see a blank, but there's an actual character there. So what's going to happen is this. It prints out like we want it to with a space showing. Now, if I put, 3 spaces inside there, then it would print out with 3 spaces and so on and so forth. However many spaces I put in there, it's going to do it. So that example uses string concatenation. I can also do it using string interpolation, which we've talked about before as well. So let's see, to begin, I'm going to go ahead and just comment this out. I don't really have to, but I'm going to show you. Since I don't really want to have that line execute anymore, I'm just going to comment it out. That's a useful technique when you want to temporarily take a line out. So C# isn't going to consider this line anymore when it executes my code. But the advantage is I don't have to actually take the whole line out. If I want to bring it back, all I have to do is, do this, get rid of the comment. That's also a useful debugging technique. So now back to what I'm trying to do here. So full name, I'm going to do an assignment again. And with string interpolation, we're always going to begin with a $sign and a double quote. Okay, that's how it's always going to begin. Now let's build our string. I'm going to do a curly brace. Make sure you're using curly braces for this. Curly brace is something special. In this case, it tells C# that we want to evaluate what's stored in this. We don't want to print out the word first name. We want to grab the contents and print out a copy of that in this place, in this position. So curly braces are for evaluation, and they're also a placeholder. And then right here where my cursor is flashing, I want to do a space, which is going to be equivalent to the space right here below my cursor in the original example. And then next, I want to do last name, evaluate that. And then don't forget the closed double quote. So we always need a matching double quotes that match. So if we put one double quote, we need a matching double quote somewhere to close the literal off. And then we'll do a semicolon like so. So if we run it, now we see we got the exact same thing as before. So these 2 lines are actually equivalent ways of doing things. Concatenation, you need to recognize it and understand it because it's been around forever. String interpolation is a newer feature of C#. I generally prefer interpolation myself. Now, you can use whatever you want, but you need to recognize and understand both. String interpolation usually leads to lines that are easier to type out and also that read better. They usually read much better than lines involving string concatenation. Now, what else can we do? Well, we don't have to just store things in variables. So in these 2 examples, what we've been doing is just that. We've been storing values in building up strings and storing them in variables. The advantage is, doing that, we can just call up the name of the variable. Actually, we can do it as many times as we want. So I could do like this. If I wanted to print out full name 3 times, I just access that name. I don't have to put lines like, for instance, this. I don't have to do this sort of thing. I can, but that's a lot more code and it doesn't read as well. So that's one of the advantages of building up strings and putting them in variables is that, we can we can just access that line every time we want to print out that message. It's useful for printing out messages in your program, in fact. We'll see examples of that as we go along. This is something else that we can do. I'm going to just comment this one out too. I don't really have to, but I'm going to. So not only can we put strings in variables, we can also just print out strings. And that's exactly what I'm doing right here in this right line. I'm just taking the same thing and just doing it. This is just one shot. That's using string interpolation. Of course, I can also do it using concatenation, like so. So I could take this and do that. Just put it in that. And we've seen examples of this so far, so that's not really anything new. If I do this, we'll see that both are equivalent ways of doing the same thing. Okay? Again, these examples are building strings and putting them in variables, and these examples are just printing out strings that we've built up. So let's see, what else can we do? Let's do this. I'm going to do some new declarations. Let's do string sum. Okay, And I could initialize these in line, but let's come down here and I'm going to do this. Let's say operand 1 is assigned a value. All right, let's say 4. Now, this won't work. And of course, I'm already getting flagged by Visual Studio. It says cannot implicitly convert type int to string. So 4 is actually an integer, and I'm trying to put it in a string. It won't work that way because, well, it won't implicitly do it. We could force it to do it, but I'm going to want to do this. Since it's a string, I've got to assign it a string literal. Okay, now that looks like a 4, but it doesn't work like a 4 if we try to do math on it. I'm going to show you that. So let's also assign a value to operand 2. And we'll do that and close that off. So now we've got operand 1 and operand 2 assigned valid string literals. Now let's take sum, and we need to assign something to it. So we're going to say like so. So this might look a little odd. We're saying sum is assigned, and then we're going to take a string plus a string. Now you might expect that it's going to be 6, but what are we doing here? We got strings on either side of the assignment, or the plus. Either side of the plus, we have strings. So it does string concatenation. Let's do a console. So now that we have our console.writeLine in, let's crank it up. And we see that it prints out 42. Now we expected 6, but it prints out 42, which I believe is the meaning of life, actually. So what's happening is it's building up a string using string concatenation. So it's going to take the 2 that's stored in here, the string 2, and tack it onto the end of the string 4 on here to build up 42. So when I tell you that strings can't be used for mathematical operations, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Okay, so what can we do about it? Well, the best thing to do would be to just declare these all as ints, which is actually what they should have been declared as originally. I'm going to show you something here that we can do. This is just an example. It's not meant to be practical. What we can do, since operand 1 is a string that represents a valid integer, so 4 is a valid integer, it could be, we can use the convert, use one of the convert methods. Like so. Convert is very important, especially when we'll talk about console.readLine later to get user input. The convert methods do just what they sound like. They're going to convert types into some other type. So toInt32 is going to convert something into an int if it can. If what we're trying to convert represents a valid integer, which operand 1 does, then it's going to convert it. If it doesn't represent a valid integer in this case, it's going to fail. All right, so toInt32. 32 just means a 32-bit integer, which is actually what the int data type is. You don't have to worry about that. It's too bad they had to put the 32 on the end. I wish they had just said toInt. But anyway, I don't have control over that. So what's going to happen is it's going to take operand 1, convert that string into an integer. It's not going to change what's stored in operand 1. This is just a temporary thing, okay? But we also need to do it here for operand 2. Because if we leave operand 2 as a string, it's still going to do string concatenation. So let's do it like this. Sweet. All right, so now what's going to happen? Now, of course, we got a red line, and I'll tell you what that's about in a second. So this is going to convert operand 1. It's going to take a copy of operand 1 to convert that copy into an int. It's going to convert this copy into an int, add the two together to make a new int, okay? And then we're going to store it in sum. The reason for the squiggly, though, is because sum is a string. So what I'm going to do here is, let's do this. Like I told you, really the best way to do this is to just declare these variables as int. Anyway. All right, so now everything's proper. So I had to convert sum to an int because what we're doing is we're winding up with an int over here. That's eventually what we're going to wind up with when this expression is evaluated. So this needs to be an int also. Okay, so now it will work as expected and print out a 6. So the convert methods are very important. We'll talk about this more when we talk about read line. All right, so what else can we do? Let's do another declaration, string address. Let's see, 457 Elm Street, like this. So this just shows you that we can have numbers in our string. We can also have punctuation, and it will print that. So when you want to print out things like this or store things like this, so like an address or social security number, if you want to have dashes in social security number, or a date of birth, if you want to have slashes in it, strings can handle all those things. So strings can handle a lot of things. Let's look at an escape sequence that we can do. So this is just meant to be an example. This isn't very practical. We've looked at escape sequences like /n before. So /n is the new line return. So remember, backslash is going to escape the normal meaning of the character that follows it. So in this case, the n, normally it would print out an n. Okay, but if I put a backslash in front of it, now it becomes new line. It's not n anymore. It's a new line return. So let's see what that looks like. So where I put that /n, it brings it down on the next line. And if I put multiple /n's in a row, so there's 3 of them, it's going to do 3 new line returns. And there you go. So /n can be used for formatting your strings or formatting the output of your strings. Now remember, /n has to be used, it can only be used within double quotes. So you've got to use it inside double quotes when you want to use it. I can also do /t, which is for tab. So let's say I do this. I can mix it up. So let's leave the 3 /n's, and then we'll come here and do a /t, like that. So that's tab. And you can see what happens is it did 3 new line returns, and then it tabbed over. I could also do multiple tabs. And again, there's no set order. I mean, I could do all kinds of things, mix it all up, however you want it to appear. Again, this is not meant to be pretty. It's just to kind of show you how to use escape sequences. Okay, that's pretty much it for strings right now. We'll see other examples later, and that's it.